Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to a very interesting session on investing in India's future, new bets for growth and returns. Every crisis shifts opportunities and advantage from the old to the new. Indian economy is set for a substantial transformation as it rebuilt with new technologies and business models. In this session, let us pick the brains of the master as we will try to identify future winners who will deliver better growth and returns to investors. May I welcome on the virtual dais Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal, Co-Chairman NLC 2021 and Chairman Hero Enterprise, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, CEO Rare Enterprises, the master as I referred to him, and Mr. Prashant Nair, National News Editor, CNBC 18. May I now request Mr. Munjal to introduce the session and our speakers.
Thank you, Rekha. It's interesting you say I should introduce the session and the speakers. I can introduce the session, but I'd be hard put to introduce these speakers. Certainly the keynote speaker is a tough one to introduce because there's not anyone I would imagine in this audience who does not know him well already. So the idea of calling this session Investing in India's Future was specific to what's going on right now. And you also said new bets for growth and returns. Our speaker, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, has been called by many monikers, including Warren Buffett of India, as somebody who's positive on India's economy always, and for some reason always seems to get it right. Even when people seem despondent and the markets seem troubled, he still seems to get his finger on the pulse always. His enterprise, which apparently he started with 5,000 rupees when the stock market was at 150, is an example for many have quoted as how to earn, how to understand how the stock markets work. Rakesh, you have been a prime example for many as to how do you study, how do you understand, how do you get a pulse of what is going on in business, industry, economy, and the people behind these. You seem to have a perception which is beyond the normal. It would be interesting to hear from you what you believe is going on right now, especially considering the havoc that the pandemic has created across the globe, and also, and especially in India, certainly with the second wave in the last few weeks. We seem to be running out of beds in most of our large cities. There is some form of shutdown, lockdown, curfew happening across many states in the country. How will this impact the economy, the companies, and therefore the future of the stock market? Many have said that this is strange that the stock market in India seems to defy gravity. Even with the economy, the question people ask is it connected to the performance of the companies? Or is it only because of lack of depth in the stock market that each time $1 billion comes in, the stock market seems to pick up? And of course, now we've had billion after billion after billion coming in, with the return on money worldwide, the cost of money worldwide having gone down to zero or even negative. So clearly we have some advantage there. But I know that you have a specific way that you look at the economy, industry, and specific companies. So it would be useful to hear from your perspective, because you come at it from a multifarious view. You are also somebody who's a movie buff. Not only are you a movie buff, you've gone and made movies, including some famous ones like English Winglish. You are a person who is in touch with reality. I believe you spend a third of what you earn on charity. I think that is absolutely an amazing example to set for many of us to follow. You are a self-confessed foodie and you love Chinese food and also dosas, I believe. And you also love horses. So you are an individual with an amazing personality. So you're not just about the stock market. You are a well-rounded, a well-sounded, and somebody who understands real life. So, and you have a famous quote, which I read somewhere the other day. You said, markets are like women, always commanding, mysterious, unpredictable, and volatile. So in this volatility, it would be interesting to hear from you as Prashant begins to question you And again, I don't need to introduce Prashant. He's one of the senior folks at CNBC TV 18. Prashant, thank you very much for making the time to come in today. As a national news editor, you see a lot more than any of us does. So your perspective in how you pose the questions, not just the questions you pose, but also how you pose the question to Rakesh, would be useful for us to understand a little bit about what's going on in the market and what to expect, at least in the foreseeable future. And maybe if Rakesh agrees to put his hands on the crystal ball, also on the long-term future. So over to you, Prashant. And thank you for both of you for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Munjal. And thank you for that introduction. Appreciate you kicking this off. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, as you said, needs absolutely no introduction. He is the second wealthiest investor in India, but most definitely the best known, without a doubt. And I mean, he's not just an investor, but he's a personality. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, thank you very much for giving us your time here. Appreciate it.
My thanks to Sunil for the introduction. I hope I live up to it.
Thank you. Let me, let me just kick this off by asking you, I think, what is on everyone's minds right now, which is, this massive medical emergency which we have on our hands, not just in large cities, but across the country now. It's a worrying situation. What is your reading of the situation in terms of how that translates and percolates down to the economy and then maybe the markets?
No, first, let me start with saying, Prashant, that the non-availability of medical facilities for Indians is actually a tragedy. And it's a tragedy whom we cannot blame anybody, but as a society, we have not planned for, I think few societies have planned for this kind of a medical need. As far as, and this too shall pass. As far as markets are concerned and the country is concerned, see, let us look at the markets as if the COVID was not there, right? Now, if you look at the markets, India is at the lowest level of corporate profitability to GDP, 1.5%. America is at 9%, right? This has come down from 2008. I think India was also 4%. Now, in between, we have had, an excess capital investment plan, right? And we have had a lot of change. We have had the bankruptcy law, we have had GST, we have had the real estate laws, right? A lot of things have changed. But I think, it took time for all these changes to be absorbed. Upon that, government is embarking on a big reform program where you're going to have labor reform, mining reform, agriculture reform, the PLI scheme. You have Jan Dhan. We have, Aadhaar, which has helped us to become, we have digitally developed tremendously. I mean, I am functioning from my home without any difficulty. I'm trading every day, I'm investing every day, right? So we as a society now are at the lowest level of corporate profits to GDP, while there has been great change. At the same time, we have a very healthy foreign exchange position. We don't have any excess debt. People talk of Indian debt. So China is 350% of debt to GDP. We are 120%. Our consumer debt is lower than Thailand, right? So I think India, let's forget the COVID. I think India is beautifully placed to, in my opinion, register double-digit growth in the next 4 to 5 years. And as I anticipated that despite this COVID second surge, we are going to have double-digit real growth in this year. And I can send you a Morgan Stanley report. He says if India has 6.5% of real GDP growth for the next till 2030, we'll be a $6.5 trillion economy, and earnings profit growth will be 23.5% compounded for the next 8 years. So I think we are on the verge, and we are in the midst of a very, very big bull run, which started the day the market made the bottom in 2020 at 7,500 Nifty. And I think we should be very agile. We should be we should take all precautions. But I think this is a small diversion in what is going to be a long bull market. That's my hope. That's my feeling. That's my intuition.
I think that is all. That's what all of us hope for. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, so in a way, what you're saying is you should look through this. I mean, you should. But then,
I invested in Titan. Let us suppose Titan's earnings do not come from this first quarter. What difference is it going to make Titan for the next 10 years?
sure, but for those who are oriented with and this is a short-term question. I take your point, and I'll come to that slightly longer term in a bit. But do you think the markets will are pricing in the situation, the medical situation, appropriately? And also, since you say you got to look through it, any way to say, because markets start to figure out things much earlier. I mean, it's collective wisdom. When do you think it will start to sense, or how far is it when it starts to say that the medical emergency is starting to abate?
See, the medical emergency has two aspects. One is a human aspect, which is very tragic, and one is a business aspect, right? So, even if you had gone to Britain where there was much worse second surge, or in France, right, the second surge has abated. So markets are reading that this is but a blip in time. And once we get the vaccination program through, right, so then the worry is going to be very little. And I don't think more than 50 crore Indians really need the vaccination, because we already have a lot of what you call that, community
Herd immunity.
And this vaccination is going to be restricted to urban areas. I think India's urban population is 45 to 50 crores. So there are 10, 15 crores below the age of 18 which will not take the vaccination. So we're going to have the vaccination, then this will also abate. And experience shows that the second surge, it goes up very fast, it abates also very fast. I would very much like it that if the COVID would not have come. But I am not going to change anything in my investing horizon just because of this COVID.
Fair enough. So you're saying at current levels, markets are appropriately pricing in what we have on our hands?
Well, that only we will know in insight, because it's difficult to predict. Suppose I think if this 250,000 a day is a peak, I'm quite confident markets will not go down. If it becomes uncontrollable, it goes to 500,000 a day and 6 lakhs a day, and we don't know it can. Who says it cannot? Right? So then the future will depend very much on what the future is.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, one is sort of number of cases, the other is number of deaths, as many are tracking. And that, if that continues to rise, that's
not rising at all as a percentage of cases. I just read a report from Credit Suisse yesterday. So as a percentage of number of cases, the deaths are far lower this time. And in most cases, the severity of the disease is also much lower.
Sure. Let's talk about the slightly longer term. You said, urban sort of population is where one will have to get the maximum amount of vaccinations will go into. Latest data shows, and this was something which was discussed last year as well, that rural India has been much lesser impacted. It's largely urban centers which have been impacted. Some are fearing that may not be the case this time. As I said, data shows that top 4 states now contribute about 58% of total active cases. This was 82% 2 months ago. So the concentration, yes, go on, sir.
Main cases are, you look at Maharashtra, the main cases are in the urban areas. 80% of the cases are in the urban areas. They may be in the rural areas, but they're not being tested, they're not being reported. And they're getting self-cured, I think.
Sure.
I think this is largely an urban phenomenon. And it's not going to really affect rural India.
Sure.
And first, to set up the infrastructure to give large vaccination rural areas will take time.
Sure.
So I think by June, a good part of urban India will be vaccinated. And also, the herd immunity will develop. The estimates are about 60% of people will be either vaccinated or have herd immunity by June.
Sure. You're saying 50% of urban India could be vaccinated by June?
See, Prashant, I want to tell you one thing. The press needs a good topic to blow up. I don't read the papers nowadays. Everything I hear is 2 are dead here, there is no oxygen here, there is no remdesivir here. So, this is being blown over all proportions. It's not a bloody cancer, it's just flu. And let me tell you, 1 year later, it will be just like a common flu.
Right.
And the medication for it, I'm told there's a medication that's being developed in America which will cure it. An Indian company has developed a liquid remdesivir, oral remdesivir. So we have to take it that, sir, yes, it's something we have to take precautions. Lockdowns may be needed, but it's not the end of the world.
Sure. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, slightly longer term, COVID is only 1 year old, right? I mean, it seems like a lifetime, and we are commenting and analyzing it all in real time. And it's too short a period to see what kind of impact it will have, I mean, medically and on the economy as well. Some are worried that while the stronger, larger companies, the listed companies which we talk about, which we discuss as part of Nifty Sensex, I mean, they continue to gain market share, grow stronger. The big get bigger, strong get stronger. Large sort of SMEs, MSMEs, those are areas which are getting severely impacted, not just this time, but last time as well. What does that do to longer term growth prospects? That's my question. Yes.
There is a natural consequence of any developing economy. When as the companies as the countries develop, the big get bigger. There is capture market share, right? And we have no specific example. I hear from the press the MSMEs are in trouble. This, that. You give us specific examples, no? Big, you're making a big mountain out of a molehill without telling us. I agree, in the hospitality sector, big or small, everybody is affected. But which SMEs have closed down because of this, and the bigger ones have escaped? I only hear MSMEs are in difficulty. We don't know what the difficulties are. Right? And the acquisition of market share. Let's say jewelry. The organized sector is capturing market share from the organized sector, COVID or no COVID. So it's a natural evolution. As the economy develops, of course, MSMEs may be more affected than the larger companies. But I don't know they're as much affected as people are making them.
Sure.
Because you go to escorts, they can't get goods from the SMEs.
Sure.
Their plants are closing down because the MSMEs are not able to supply. So where they don't have the market.
Right. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, my question only was about whether...
In 1920, we had the Spanish flu.
Right.
How many people died? I think 15 million or 18 million all over the world. And then America had the greatest prosperous decade of its life. I think we are going to have the roaring 20s in India.
Sure. Okay, let's leave COVID aside and leave it to the medical professionals and people who are trying to cure it, etc. Let's come to economy, markets and prospects for India. I mean, before we started, a bunch of us were on the call and you were saying that there are moments when, which are turning points. And if you capture them, you tend to make a lot of money, a lot of wealth. Can you tell us, in your experience, which were the 3 or 4 large turning points? I mean, maybe post Harshad, 2000, 2008, maybe.
I can tell my life, which was a turning point. 89 was a budget of Madhu Dhanvate.
Right.
That lasted up to 93. Then the turning point was when the market made the low after September 11, 2001. Market made a low on September 18, which never came back. And we had a bull market actually from 2001 to 2008. And I think the COVID in 2020 March was the biggest opportunity I could have seen in my life. I mean, you had telco available at 80 rupees. A company whose sales were 3 lakh crores belongs to the house of Tatas, who owned a company with 8 lakh crore market cap, right? And telco was available for a market cap of 30,000 crores. So risk reward was so much in your favor. And I'm an interested party. I bought a lot of shares of Tata Motors, right? Which I hold. I want to make a SEBI disclosure. So I think these are the 3 biggest opportunities. The Madhu Dhanvate budget of 89, the market bottom after 2001, and 2021 March. 2020 March. I mean, 2020 March, you pick up Ina, Mina, more. Anything you bought is double or triple or 4 times.
Right. And do you think that, that was a great opportunity when prices fell in very short periods of time? And as you said, you picked up anything and you made a lot of money. But has it also, I mean, do you believe that we are at a point where things are taking off? Because you've said that many times in many forums, that we are in a way at the start of a upcycle, upswing.
We're at the cost of reputation. I always believe in Indian inherent skills and abilities. We're a democracy, there is entrepreneurship. The Indians are among the most skilled people in the world. According to me, I could be wrong, right? And change comes slowly in India, but once it comes, it's permanent. See, I'm extremely bullish at the moment. I told a group of NRIs, what did America give you? America gave you a platform. By reform and by trying to have ease of doing business in India, we are going to give a platform to Indians. Right? And as I see India, we are going to have more than double-digit growth this year. We're going to have 6, and then that 6 is going to 7, and that 7 is going to 8, and the 8 is going to 9, and that 9 is going to 10. And I see once that happens, it's going to continue for unbelievable period of time. We have the most favorable demographics of any nation in the world. We have skills, we have democracy, we will have reform, we will have the PSUs privatized. And I think the government is we are all Indians underestimating the determination of Mr. Modi to reform. I thought the insurance bill will be passed in 6 months. It has never happened that a reform is suggested in the budget and the bill is passed in the same session. So I think with this change, inherent skills, the transformation that we have undergone, and what makes me really happy is that all that is happening with good delivery of social justice. No Indian talks about the water program. 40% is in India waterborne. If every Indian gets water by tap in his house, half the mortality and the disease will reduce. I mean, for me, a few thousand crores more won't matter. But if every Indian can have water by a tap in his house, clean water, I think it's a dream for me. But nobody wants to acknowledge this in this country. What makes we Indians don't believe in ourselves. I want to write an article. Believe in ourselves, my fellow Indians. We will do it. And I may not live to see it. I'm telling you, one day India's GDP, India's per capita income will exceed China. It may take 25 years, it may take 30 years. But India will do it.
Sure.
I reserve the right to be wrong.
No, absolutely. So, let me ask you, which are structural themes which you will bet on? You are fully invested. I've heard you many times in the past in various forums saying that you are carrying the maximum amount of leverage you ever have in your life. I mean, actually, I want a clarification there as well. Is that still true? The second part, and first is, which are these themes to bet on, which is essentially the topic of our discussion today here. Yeah,
I think there is going to be a big upturn in the Indian economy, right? Metals. I think they are one. If you look at the divergence between the valuation of cement stocks and the valuation of metal stocks, and if you look at the prospects of metal stocks, I don't understand it here. So I think there's great opportunity, and I'm an interested party. I'm a large investor there, right? And I think, the most battered stock in the mid caps and the small caps are going to give the biggest returns. It's not the HDFCs and the Titans and the most favored stocks, according to me, which in the next 4-5 years will give the highest returns. It is the battered and the cyclical stocks which will give the best returns.
Just to pick up on that point on metals, this term super cycle is is a new favorite. I mean, it gets thrown around quite a bit. Any thoughts on whether this is really a cycle which will last for a number of years?
I think it will last for at least 10 years.
Okay.
Because there are basic reasons everywhere, because the pollution production has to be reduced. Nobody has made an investment in metals for the last 10 years. There's been underinvestment. Even at these prices, the existing players have high profitability. If you see the replacement cost and the cost of getting new capacity, the returns are not very high at these prices. And with major investment in infrastructure, right? I think demand for metals is going to be huge. So there's been underinvestment. It's not that, you cannot, first of all, get plants easily. There are a lot of concerns because of the environment and pollution. And you cannot, at these level of prices also, at replacement cost, the profitability is not very high. The ROEs are not very high. So I think, and the sheer disbelief about it, right? And the realities are so much different than the disbelief. And it's just going on. And I've learned in my career that something happens, as long as there is disbelief, it's going to continue.
Right. When we say metals, just to narrow it down, are we talking steel? Are we talking
ferrous, non-ferrous, both?
Both. And in terms of non-ferrous in India, are there enough ways to play this upcycle? Because most are converters. So
no, Hindalco is there, Vedanta is there. They are not the converters. They're large companies. They'll have their EBITDA in billions of dollars here.
No, I meant that, you don't have, big, large miners where you kind of play the cost of metal going up directly in that way. But in any case.
Like was a clean beneficiary. Vedant, there's a clean beneficiary.
Oh, sure.
He has got zinc, he has got no raw material, and he's converting into zinc.
Sure. So that is the entire metal space. You said other cyclicals as well, and which sort of narrow it down a little bit in terms of sectors, Mr. Jhunjhunwala.
No, I don't want to add. Maybe it is the small banks. It is the infrastructure businesses. One business on, see, last year India's pharma exports were 24 billion. I think the US, the software exports were 210, 215 billion. I see this 24 going to 200 billion in time too. So I think pharma is going to be evergreen industry. And another thing which makes me very bullish on the Indian economy is, see, you're thinking of 10 to 12% growth in dollar terms for software exports. That means you get $20 billion where the value added is 15 billion. That gives a kicker to demand for everything. Including, and I think India is going to now play a very big role in manufacturing. Right? Now, Aurobindo is putting up a 3,500 crore fermentation plant. It will be the largest in the world. Under the PLI scheme. I'm an interested party, I'm a shareholder. So, I mean, I don't know, Prashant, I could be right. I could be totally wrong, but my perception of India and its future is far different from most Indians. And what makes me, maybe the people who don't share my perception, may be right, I may be wrong. But actually, I think there's need for all of us Indians to be optimists. If we don't dream, if we don't believe, how will we achieve? मरा मुंह लेके जाएंगे तो मरे की खबर लाएंगे. I don't know if you understand Hindi or not.
Absolutely.
मरा मुंह लेके जाएंगे तो मरे की खबर. So why don't we as Indians believe we can do it? We can achieve prosperity, we can eliminate poverty. And we are at the threshold. And I wish I'm right only for India, for the poor of India, and I'm no politician. I have no political ambitions.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, real estate is a space. Are you bullish?
Yeah, I'm bullish. But I'm not so bullish in the fancy real estate. I'm bullish, if you buy land around the second-tier towns in India, or you buy land along the land where the metro is coming. So I would say, what I feel is there will be a lot of sale in the metropolitan cities of real estate, or the, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, but there will not be much rise in prices. Right? So there will be volume.
Sure. You briefly talked about software exports. This is one question. IT has been an incredible wealth creator over the last 15, 20 years. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but are there any why have you in a way sat out of this IT journey, IT services exports journey?
I did not. I didn't know anything about a computer until 2001 and 2. And I never understood the importance of software. So I never made any investment, when these companies were not very well known. And then I have an investment in a large KPO. I own 55% of it. It's quite a substantial investment. So I have that exposure now. And actually, I'm going to tell somebody to write on my grave that here is a guy who was known to be a good investor, but never invested in Infosys and TCS.
Maybe you're getting closer to Mr. Buffett. But that the aversion to IT. But he corrected that mistake by buying IBM. I don't know.
The only rules are there are no rules, and the lesser predators you have, the better off you are.
Right. Your best known investment is Titan. It's a consumer play. What about FMCG broadly? Which are also very large, Daburs, Maricos, those kind of names. Again, something which you stayed away from.
Such an overwhelming wife in Titan that there is very little space for other skills. See, what I have done in investment is that wherever I have bought an investment at a very, very reasonable valuation, and it has shot up. Right. I have tended to sell it and go into other scripts. And I also have a limit of capital. So when Titan is doing well, why should I sell Titan? Where do I get the money to buy some new scripts here?
Right. Right.
You see, my portfolio is not something very structured and very, done on a basis of alpha and beta, and it's all my intuition, my feeling, and I've been horribly wrong sometimes, horribly right sometimes. So I don't really know why I never invest in certain shares.
Sure.
I'm happy with what I invested in.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, you have a very large trading book. You also have a very large investment book. I've always wondered, and you're an avid trader as well. You enjoy it. How do you balance the two, and how do you manage things like position sizing, and when you have a very large stock of
all my capital is employed in investing.
Right.
So all my trading, I pledge my invested shares on this capital. So
right.
My ROEs in trading are unbelievably high. And ROE and investing are two different compartments.
Right.
Trading is lay phatapat, it's short-term momentum.
Right.
Short-term can be even 9 months, 6 months, 1 year.
Right.
Well, investment is basically analysis on the earning potentiality.
Right.
And the continuance of that personality, of that value of that earnings.
Right.
So there are two different compartments, and I love trading. And how do I get the capital to trade, to invest? By trading profits only. No father gave, I wouldn't have taken even if my father-in-law gave, but then my wife would be my boss, right? So, I have to earn money in trading and invest basically. And there are different compartments, and if you can keep a wife and a mistress totally apart, you can be happy with both.
Right. Just a quick point on, briefly, if you can touch upon position sizing as well, Mr. Jhunjhunwala. In trading, how do you decide? Because you also made mistakes, but it's not cost you as a percentage of your portfolio too much. That's basically about sizing.
One thing is there, no, I'm ready to make a mistake, but make one which only I can afford. So I may live to make another one. So I can tell you one thing, I leverage, by God's grace, touch wood, I leverage with some maturity.
Right.
And it's not wrong to leverage, especially when the opportunity is so great.
Right.
I don't know there is no capital of mine involved in trading.
Okay.
All the capital I have for investment in trading is borrowed.
Right.
And it's borrowed against the security of my investments.
Right.
So really, if I earn 1 crore in trading, the return on capital is 1 crore %.
Right.
So there's no capital employed actually.
Right.
That is my capital employed.
Right.
Right. I pledge my shares and raise capital.
Right.
If I do it in the futures, I pledge shares, I give shares as margin and trade.
Right. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, what COVID has done, not just here in India, but around the world also, is that it's led to an explosion of activity from new investors, newbies, in the market. What advice would you give someone who's starting out and who wants to do this full time and wants to make money in the markets?
Biggest problem this is that GameStop and all that is nothing but a race course. It's damn exciting. And then people will make little money in 1 or 2 trades. They will bet bigger, and most of them will then go to the poorhouse or lose money rather.
Sure.
So I don't think it's healthy at all. It's happening in this GameStop and these cryptos and 20% fluctuation a day and 40% fluctuation a day. I think it's most unhealthy. I think the Indian regulator is doing much better than the Americans. I think it's unhealthy. Because, remember one thing my father had told me, nothing is more near the truth, that the stock market is fire, handle with care. So all these newbie-comers, time will tell, that's my opinion, I can be wrong.
And all these but financial innovation has always been part of the US market. They've always been on the edge in that sense. Some fail spectacularly, some pick up.
Not 40% fluctuation in GameStop every day.
Absolutely.
You don't want assets with 15% valuation, fluctuation like cryptos.
Have you changed your mind about cryptos?
Not at all. I'll never change it.
Why is that? Why can't you be wrong about cryptos? Why can't?
I can always be wrong. Who said I can't be wrong? But what I'm saying is that's my opinion. I don't say every opinion of mine will be necessarily right here.
I mean, opinion subject to change or no change in this case?
There can be no currency. Can you have a currency which fluctuates 20% in a day? I go with a budget of 20 rupees to eat in Khyber, and they say, no, now it's worth 16 rupees, so eat less. How can you have a currency which fluctuates 15-20%?
No, but to be fair, Mr. Jhunjhunwala,
how can a sovereign give up the right to issue currency?
No. To be fair, the US CFTC, no less, has deemed cryptocurrency as a store of value, as a commodity, not as a currency.
Let me tell you one thing, that may be the FTC's opinion. Anybody can create it. Tomorrow there can be 5 crore cryptocurrencies.
There are actually.
Then what is the value? It can be a commodity which can be continuously replicated. How can it have value then?
Right.
There is a limitation to how do I determine the price of a commodity?
Sure.
The cost of production and the demand, no?
Yeah.
There is, everybody can, if I can create a substitute for aluminum every day, what will be the value of aluminum?
Sure, absolutely.
So this is just blind faith and belief in newness and technology.
Right.
Anything that technology does is not right.
Right.
I mean, if you look at and which country is going to give up the right to issue sovereign currency?
Right. Right.
Don't forget that Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all the blue-blooded bankers who are banking the crypto because they get business were the people who wrote buy reports for, which was Mr. Ketan Pari's companies. Which collapsed.
Yeah. I can't recall it now, but I know what you're talking about.
All were giving buy reports.
No, but even on Bitcoin, all these banks, global banks, wrote it off earlier. Even 2 years ago, they've all now come around.
That's why they got screwed in Angelo, no? Because for business, they will do anything and have any opinion.
Right. But Mr. Jhunjhunwala, just a quick word on your unlisted activities as well in terms of investments into the unlisted space. Just talk a little bit about that. I mean, what are you doing there?
Those companies where they give buys, Global and Himachal. At 3,000 rupees, all they come out with buy reports. Sure. And price became 9 rupees.
Sure. Your thoughts. I mean, what are you doing in the unlisted part of the market right now, and where are you seeing opportunities?
I'm investing.
Where exactly? What kind of names? Because
I don't. What I've invested is in some two pharma companies, in the insurance company, in a KPO, FMCG, a shoe retailer, then various other money management firm. We have some schools, various businesses.
Sure.
But my investments are long period, 10 years, 12 years, 13 years.
Right. The value of your unlisted investments as a percentage of your listed investments? I mean, would that...
Don't know, was it 25, 30, 1/3?
1/3. Got it. This year... Sorry?
I myself don't know, I'm just guessing.
Okay. This year we'll see a lot of new age companies. I mean, like for example, Nazara came to the market recently. We don't have it's a gaming company. I mean, it's been described as a holding company which gets into all kinds of businesses, which does gaming in turn. But it's a gaming company. It's a new category. We'll have maybe Zomato. We'll have other companies, new age companies, which will make it to the market. Any thoughts there at all?
When I invested in Nazara had 150 crores cash. Right? And the only money Nazara had ever raised was $5 million. And it was a cash flow positive company. So I don't invest in all these. I mean, maybe, I don't have to go to every party in town. But I don't want to invest in these dreams.
Okay.
I can invest in a dream at a valuation.
Right. I mean, there's Zomato, I think there's Policy Bazaar, there is all kinds of big companies which may make it to the market this year. Nykaa, for example.
Report by Kotha.
Yeah.
Now people are saying insurance will go digital. Actually, the share of health insurance sold by agents and not digital has gone up from 70 to 75% in the last 5 years. And digital share is some 2%. So that's interesting. I just want to give back. I mean, Citibank, they say retail business is going to be sold for $2.2 billion. It was started 80 years ago. It's a highly profitable business. And you're valuing credit $2 billion. So God help us, boss. At the moment I'm wrong, but I don't know how long it will last.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, we have a few questions from viewers as well. And actually, we have a lot of questions. I'm going to take a few. Mr. Dharmendra Mehta is saying, how will markets react to post-COVID second wave, especially pharma and healthcare sector? I mean, I think, yeah, go on.
They'll do well. They are doing well and they will do well.
Mr. Raj Kumar Agarwal is asking, current revival in stock market is limited to IT, pharma and metals. Is it due to increase in liquidity or due to revival in growth rate? We have not yet seen signs of big revival in economic growth as predicted by various international agencies. Your thoughts?
Will always markets go up because there are more buyers and less sellers. So liquidity always plays a role. But I believe there is a revival. I don't agree there's not a revival, right? And I think the revival will accentuate as time passes. Post this second wave.
Mr. Bidyu Chakrabarti is asking, on metals and mining, do you see impact of too many regulatory changes done in mining sector that kind of brings in much more complexity in the value chain?
No, but it's not differentiating or changing the rules for mining for the other older companies. What government is doing is the mines, it is hastening the auctioning of mines, although where the mines have been taken and they're not being used, is liberalizing the usage of what is produced in the mines. Formerly, a company like Tata Steel had to use the ore only for its own production. Now, government is allowing them to sell it to anybody. So the reforms are all good for the mining sector, for the metal and the mining sector.
Fair enough. I'm being selfish because I want to ask one last question to you, Mr. Jhunjhunwala. We have more questions coming in, but I think I've covered a lot of it. You're incredibly wealthy. You're incredibly well known. What would you like to be? I mean, what would you want to do with your money? Is my question in a way. I mean, I don't want to say what do you want to do in philanthropy or this or that, but what do you broadly want to do with all the wealth you've created?
I have come to a new definition of wealth. A wealthy person is one who thinks he has more than he needs. I have seen people who earn 1 lakh a month and they're very happy. I've seen people who earn 2 crores a month and they are unhappy. So wealth also has, पैसे की भी एक परिभाषा है. वो परिभाषा की कोई limit नहीं है. So what I feel is that wealth by itself, and I have realized that wealth by itself is not a source of happiness. It's a medium. It's not a result. Wealth does not result in happiness. Happiness comes from contentedness. If you are contented, you are happy, right? What I intend to do with my wealth is obvious: give some to my children, and give some to charity. And my, father used to say कि पैसे की 5 करोड़ अच्छा ही है, खाली एक ही खराबी है. आदमी साथ नहीं ले जा सकता. I myself question myself a lot of times. Why do I want to earn? What use is it to me? But then I feel, what will I do? My wife will throw me out of the house. It keeps me engaged. It keeps me young. It keeps my brain active. And I've decided that certain percentage, minimum 25%. I have 3 children, and charity is my 4th child. I want to give equally to all of them. And if I and my wife agree, we might even give more to charity. That's what I want to do with wealth. I pray to God, not that you give me wealth. I pray to God that you give me the power to give. Because if He gives me the wealth, He doesn't give me the power to give. The wealth is of no use. But I want to do it in a very organized and very thought out manner. Not on an impulsive basis like I was doing up to now.
Mr. Jhunjhunwala, great words and great way to end this session. Thank you very much. And thank you for being generous with your time. And really appreciate it, sir.
Don't worry. Thank you.
Thank you.